Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to talk about the 7Hz Salnotes Zero. This is a $20 budget IEM. This was not sent to me for review. I purchased these even though I have a lot of IEMs, TWS earbuds, headsets, headphones, etc. I was seeing a lot of chatter and hype about the Zeros because of how good they sound for the money. And because I have a pretty decent following now on YouTube that's growing thanks to you all, I felt it was right to buy it and cover it because if it's really as good as some people are making it seem to be, it's worth sharing. So this is available in 4 colors now. It's always listed 3 on the website, but on Amazon they have one with a red shell now. So I have the black. You can get it in this cool teal, like baby blue color, the red shell that I mentioned, and in white. Regardless of what color you get, you also get a little baggie. It looks like a little bag of Skittles colored ear tips. They're all cheap silicone ear tips. Again, this is a $20 IEM, so don't expect like the Spin Fits, the Complies, memory foam, etc. They have different diameters. They actually have slightly different port sizes on them too. So like the bore on the tip is slightly different. Now, because of that, that will affect your tuning. So that can alter your bass and treble. I'm basing my, I guess, opinion on the red tips, which I found sounded best. Not only did it fit my ear the best, which is critical because you want a seal to make sure you get the proper bass response, but I like the port size. I think everything kind of worked well together. For what you get in the box, aside from that, you get this cable. Now these cables are detachable. These use the 7.78 millimeter detachable 2-pin cables. Now you can buy aftermarket ones online. For $20, I'm not going to go and buy $30 cables and expect to transform and transcend the sound. You really only get cables if there's like a comfort or style or durability change. Don't expect them to drastically change the sound quality of your IEM. And in this case, it's great because the cable that's included is actually quite nice. It's a nice rubber. It has this little slidable collar, which makes it nice to wrap. Now, there's no carrying case or pouch or anything, but I'm not really going to fault it too much because overall, I think the sound and comfort is the most important thing. And I'm going to spend most of the review on the sound. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because, again, this wasn't sent to me. I really just want to get right to it and explain why I think this is something good to consider. Now, as far as looks and comfort, a lot of that is subjective, and your mileage may vary because your ear shape changes. Now, I'm not a huge IEM fan. I'm not a big fan of the comfort of IEMs. I typically prefer over ears, but realistically, I can't use that all the time, or at least sometimes I'd rather not deal with traveling around with a larger headphone. So it's important to consider. Now, these are a comfortable mold. They have a nice curve to them, but they're relatively flat for what presses against your ear. So keep that in mind because depending on your ear shape, you may or may dislike or like the comfort. I actually found it to be pretty good. For IEMs, I was able to keep these in longer than most of the IEMs I own. The SIMGOT EM2 Relitions, I believe that's how you say it. Those were my most comfortable ones that I own. I could wear those for the longest period of time. But for the price point, these are still comfy. Now the looks, again, subjective. It's a plastic shell with a stainless steel face plate, which can look good. It's kind of industrial looking. That's nothing fancy. It doesn't have the pretty, star finish that you get on the Critical collab, that Zero, which is $50. But it's serviceable. I don't really care what things look like. I really just care about the comfort in the sound quality, to be honest with you. So your mileage may vary there. It's just really up to you. Now, as far as specs and performance goes, these use a single 10 millimeter dynamic driver, which I like. I really like the tonality and performance of dynamic drivers typically. So, and this is no exception. I'll get into the sound quality, but as far as the specs go, it's rated at 10 to 20,000 hertz. They have 108 decibel sensitivity rating, and they're 32 ohms. These are crazy easy to drive. So it's important to consider that because it would suck to buy $20 IEMs and then need like some $50 or $100 amp or DAC or whatever to power them. Most IEMs are easy to drive, which means you don't have to make other significant investments to use it. On my MacBook Pro, I just plugged these straight into the headphone jack, and I loved it. On my phone, a $10 Apple dongle is really all you need. If you don't have a headphone jack, get a $10 to $20 USB or Lightning dongle, whether it's an Abigail, a Lightning DAC, Lightning dongle, etc. They're cheap and they're more than enough to power this and make them sound good. On the extreme side, if you want something that's just way over the top, go with something like the Helm Audio Bolt, which has a bit more power. It has native MQA unfolding. Not that that matters as much, but you know, there's more specs there. Now, I've been investing on the measurement side. I have rigs to measure headphones and headsets, and I also have a very accurate way of measuring IEMs and TWS earbuds now. So with the Salnotes Zero, if you look at it, honestly, this frequency response is, I don't want to say off the charts because that sounds dumb when covering something scientific, but it measures incredibly well. You have a bass shelf that's not too extreme. This is very close to the Harman curve without going way off board. And just to show you, this pink line is the 2019 V2 IEM Harman curve. If you don't know what the Harman curve is, that's basically after, in a simple term, after doing some studies with what consumers typically like, you know, the house sound, they developed a curve that kind of represents what the general population typically prefers. And the general population likes bass and treble. More, I don't want to say a V shape, but it's getting there. I'm actually not a huge fan of the traditional Harman curve for IEMs because it can get a little too much. It can be either too bright or too bassy, but it does come down to how loud you listen to it, because if you turn these up to louder volumes, that elevated bass and treble might be too much. It might seem like it overpowers the mix, and now you're losing kind of the neutral presentation of music. So the Salnotes Zero is close though, and the bass emphasis is in the sub-bass region. So they're not like a really hard-hitting, high slam kick, if you will, type IEM. It's more of a thunderous bass that gently rolls into the mid to upper bass before being scooped down for the mids. It builds back up in the treble region. As you get to the upper mids to treble, it lifts back up. You know, you're talking, if we go to the bass here of about 700 hertz as the peak valley, if you will, and then compare that. So that's 76 decibels, and now we're at 85 or 86 basically. So you're looking at a 10 decibel swing overall of amplitude from your lowest point of your mid-range to your treble. It's not overly bright. They may sound extreme, but what's really nice is because the frequency response is so consistent and smooth, it's not jaggedy, it doesn't seem like this harshness just comes out of nowhere. It still sounds incredibly natural, so they really tune this well. Now this uses a metallic composite driver, and that's just 7Hz, I guess, proprietary design. It's something they kind of made for these IEMs, and I actually think they crushed it when it comes to that performance, at least from a measured standpoint. Now, you want to ignore this little 8K peak. That is the resonant frequency of the microphone used on the coupler, used to measure IEMs. I can compensate that, but I just want to show you the true measurement. It really does just follow this slope down to 10 hertz or 10 kilohertz. And then it picks back up right about 13 to 14K. That's basically your treble, your air presence, which can typically translate to the soundstage and what you interpret as soundstage. So they're tuned extremely well. Now, one of my favorite tracks to test my audio gear on is Radiohead's Identikit. I love that song as a whole, so that helps. Thank God, otherwise I'd get burnt out of it. But it starts off with this really deep, low frequency kick, this repeating kick that's going down to 20, 30 hertz, which not a lot of songs that have this other level of detail and fidelity to them typically do. I know there's billions of songs out there, but I love the way it does that intro. And the Zeros, the way they're tuned, they're presenting that deep bass that a lot of IEMs or headphones don't always produce. You get more of the hard-hitting aspect of it, but not so much of the thump, if you will. And I think the Zeros really present that note extremely well, while simultaneously conveying this subtle voice that's creeping in on the right-hand side of the track. Like the background chorus, if you will, the melodies going on, and the ability to produce that level of bass with that level of clarity and not have it impede on the vocals, even at lower volumes, is a pretty big testament to how well dialed in these drivers are. It's tracks like that to start showing you how much you can get for $20. Now, just over the 2-minute and 30-second mark of that song, you get these really cool synth waves that come in. The effects can be pretty high energy depending on the headphone or IEM or whatever you're listening to. These are borderline exceeding the energy level I like on that part of the song at medium to louder volume, so it kind of depends on what volume you listen to. However, they are not hiding that synth at all. It is like totally present in the mix. It becomes a dominant track, but again, you're still getting this crazy wide soundstage and presentation of all these things happening at once. So the Zeros, I guess if you're looking for something that adds warmth to the vocals, the bass dips down a little bit too much to, have a male vocal be kind of warm and heavier sounding. It thins out, or at least is very, very neutral on a male vocal. I find that these work a little bit better with female vocals overall because they're not sibilant or harsh sounding, but they're also very clean, and it's not altering the tonality of female vocalists. Now, obviously it depends on the mix and who you're listening to specifically for an artist, but I found them really enjoyable for that. Now, because these are so smooth sounding, there's no peaks or craziness to them. Even when you listen to an old song like Grindin' from the Clips, which is a really old hip hop song, it's actually a harder hitting bass hip hop song. It's not deep. And these still show a surprising amount of kick to them. I could listen to it louder and the kick isn't so dominant that it's ruining the rest of the song because they have it pulled back slightly. So there is an elevated bass shelf. Now, this isn't elevated to what some people like, but it's certainly there. And even on songs like that, I found it crazy enjoyable. And if you're on the whole old school hip hop track at that point, you go to something like Phenomenon from LL Cool J, which has that rolling deep bass, and these things just absolutely scream. I like them for rock. I like them for jazz. Rock, I don't think you're going to get the crazy ringing of the acoustic strings as much as something like the Chew, which I think has a little bit better resolution when it comes to acoustics. However, for most genres, what's cool about the Zero is they work with damn near everything, and they're so incredibly cheap that you're not being held back and you're not missing out. So that about wraps up the review. I really spoke more about these than I planned on. I wanted this review to be short because I honestly, at the end of the day, don't have the $20 price stigma make you think these are cheap, crappy sounding IEMs. It is insane what you get at $20. These are like giant killers at their price point. Are they perfect? No, they are not the most resolving analytical IEMs out there. They're not going to play every single nuance and micro detail of a song to expose things you've never heard of before. But everything you're going to listen to is and should sound great. Now, if it's to your preference or not, that's a different thing. But these are tuned so well, they're so cheap that they really work for a huge range of people. This is like the gateway drug into IEMs and what's possible on a budget. It really is remarkable. I'm not going to travel with my expensive headphones. I have huge open back planars. I'm not going to bring that with me, but it doesn't mean I don't want to listen to something I enjoy when I travel. So something like these are like my workhorse IEMs. Because they're cheap, if I damage them, something happens to them, I'm not going to be as upset. But the whole time I use them, I'm not being let down by a cheap IEM either. So whether you have, only $20, $30 to spend on audio, that doesn't mean you can't get great sound. Something like the Zero is perfect for you. Or if you just want a cheaper IEM because you don't want to bring your expensive big gear with you on the go, this is seriously shocking how good it is. I love listening to music on these because they play every genre so well. Are they going to retrieve every single micro detail of every track? No. But they're very forgiving. They work with damn near every genre I listen to, and the ones that I guess they're not optimized for, they don't sound bad. You're just not going to get every single nuance and detail that's possible to retrieve. So I absolutely love this thing. I'm very unbiased. I don't want you to think I'm like shilling these. I just bought these and I just wanted to share my experience with it. So if you do get them and you don't like them, just return it. Amazon's selling all 4 of them for only $20 right now, and they have an extended return policy. So that's like a pretty low risk trial and error. If you end up getting these, shoot a comment below. I am curious what you think if I was off base here, but I have had these for a couple months and I've loved them the entire time. So with that being said, thank you so much for checking out the review and making it to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have tons of audio stuff I'm coming out with lately, and I will see you next time. Bye.